In August 1966, Kenneth Allen McDuff abducted 3 teenagers from a Fort Worth baseball field, shot the 2 boys, and murdered 16-year-old Edna Sullivan, a crime that set a chain of failures in motion. McDuff was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death in 1968. 4 years later, the Supreme Court's Furman v. Georgia decision commuted his sentence to life. He served 23 years, and in October 1989, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles released him despite corrections officials' objections. Between that release and his arrest in 1992, McDuff murdered at least 9 more people. He was rearrested, tried, sentenced to death twice, and executed in 1998. The system that commuted and then paroled him bears a direct responsibility for the lives lost after 1989. Kenneth Allen McDuff was born in Rosebud, Texas in 1946. By his early 20s, he amassed convictions for theft and assault. At 20, he abducted and killed Robert Brand, Marcus Dunnam, and Edna Sullivan. The murders were brutal and deliberate. His death sentence reflected that brutality. The Furman decision, however, applied nationwide and converted many capital sentences to life terms. McDuff spent the 1970s and 1980s in Texas prisons, repeatedly flagged by staff as dangerous and predatory. He was denied parole multiple times until systemic pressure altered the calculus. The mechanism of failure is stark. Texas prisons were under federal court order from Ruiz v. Estelle to reduce severe overcrowding. The pressure to move prisoners out of custody created incentives to approve releases that corrections professionals opposed. In October 1989, the parole board approved McDuff's release. He was 43, having spent more than 2 decades behind bars. A supervising corrections official later testified that McDuff had explicitly said he intended to kill again if paroled. That admission was documented. The board released him anyway. Once free, McDuff moved between Waco and Austin, taking odd jobs, frequenting car washes and convenience stores, places where individuals could be isolated. Over roughly 3 years, he resumed a pattern of abduction and murder. His victims included women who worked in or passed through red light districts, and others living ordinary lives. A student, a mother, a woman at a late-night car wash. The methods were consistent: approach, force into a vehicle, disappearance, discovery of remains later in remote locations. The pattern tied multiple unsolved disappearances across central Texas to a man the system had returned to the community. Colleen Reed, 29, disappeared on December 29, 1991, after stopping at an Austin car wash. Witnesses saw her forced into a car. Valencia Joshua, 22, and a student at Texas A&M, vanished in March 1991 and was later found in a field. Melissa Northrup, 22 and pregnant, was abducted from a Waco convenience store in March 1992 while her small children waited. Her body was found near Dallas. These 3 are among at least 9 victims attributed to McDuff during his post-release killing spree. Investigators named additional possible victims, and families were left seeking answers while grieving, knowing the man believed responsible had been released despite warnings. McDuff was arrested on May 4, 1992, after being profiled on America's Most Wanted and placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. A peer at a truck driving school recognized him from the broadcast and notified authorities. He was captured in Kansas City. Subsequent investigations connected him to multiple murders. He was tried separately for Colleen Reed and Melissa Northrup, convicted in both cases, and sentenced to death twice. During these proceedings, he offered information about other victims and burial sites in exchange for legal considerations, sometimes cooperating and sometimes withholding, extending the process of discovery and the ordeal for families. The political and legal aftermath was immediate. The Texas legislature enacted reforms to parole procedures, increasing scrutiny for violent offenders and altering how overcrowding was managed. Governor Ann Richards faced intense scrutiny over the episode, and the parole board underwent structural changes. Those reforms sought to prevent a repeat of the precise alignment of pressures that had produced McDuff's release, judicially mandated population reductions, colliding with a parole board willing to override corrections expertise, to understand institutional responsibility, distinguish constitutional rulings from administrative failures. Furman was a constitutional decision about arbitrariness and cruelty in capital sentencing. It did not cause McDuff's later victims. The decisive failure occurred in 1989 when the parole board, under external population pressure, released a man corrections officers had documented as likely to reoffend. That was an administrative choice, not a legal inevitability. McDuff's case has become a cautionary exemplar in debates about parole, risk assessment, and prison overcrowding. It is frequently cited when advocates argue for stronger veto mechanisms for corrections professionals, for objective risk instruments, and for policies that insulate release decisions from purely numerical population targets. The chilling detail that McDuff told a corrections officer he intended to kill again, and was nonetheless released, remains a focal point in those arguments. Kenneth McDuff was executed by lethal injection on November 17, 1998. He was the only person in Texas history to receive 2 separate death sentences. 9 people died in the period after his release. Families sought closure through trials and confessions, and communities demanded institutional accountability. When systems prioritize expediency over expert warning and public safety, the most vulnerable pay the price. Subscribe to Case Files TV for deeper examinations of cases where policy and practice collide. Because when the system chooses convenience over caution, someone always pays.